We talked about this the last time it happened. That was a big one. What are your here? I'll let you. I want to know what is your opinion on this, because this happened more than once on this card.
It might be that we have to. For me, I almost just want to go back and start looking at the rules for how knee to a ground opponent is determined. Because honestly, that's kind of what this fight really, what I felt like this card put a spotlight on was, all right, in the heat of the moment, this is kind of it's a complicated rule, and I don't even necessarily know if I agree with it in the way that it's framed.
Well,
but at the same time, it is actively a rule, and it was broken. And I hate to say it, you can call intent, like, if you want to talk about intention, I feel like intention would be something that you bring up during an appeal, not during the moment.
Yep.
But in the moment, it's being enforced in the way that it should have been enforced, which it got failed to. If you want to appeal it into a no contest, cite intention and the fact that he was winning the fight going into it, like, okay, but that should be an appeal, not.
Oh, I didn't say this at the top. Bohalio got the win.
Yep.
He didn't get DQ'd.
That's why it's wild.
Yes. So, I will give you the easy answer, and I'll give you the more complicated, my more complicated opinion. The easy answer is okay. You don't know it. Well, I was gonna see, like, maybe if I queued you up, maybe you would just say it. Allow knees as the end of it, as the easy answer.
I would classify. All right, if I was going to talk about what is a downed opponent, I would say on your back. Like back touching the wall.
Because now I'm trying to think of how you could goose the system there. I'm not going to outright disagree with that one. I've thought about that before too. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Some part of your back touching the ground would be you as a down opponent.
Yep. Yeah. No. I'm okay with that. And it's that way. There's no gaming the system.
Yep.
Right.
Because if you're down on all fours, you're in a very you're wrong. You're in a very compromised position there.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
You're doing MMA wrong. You're UFCing way wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think the force that you can generate to an opponent who is on all fours from a knee is less than what you could do to someone in the clinch. I would actually argue I would be curious to measure the force impact of the damage that you can do, like Anderson Silva kneeing someone in the clinch versus Anderson Silva kneeing someone who's on all fours. Because I would be interested to see if, I'm willing to bet you can generate significantly more power in the clinch.
Well, all right. So without changing the game too much, because ONE FC does allow knees to a grounded opponent, it's more classic Pride rules. But remember, Pride, you couldn't elbow on the ground. And
so you should allow to ground them.
Well, actually, I like that rule because elbows cause cuts.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, they're damaging, and there's ways to use elbows on the ground that are effective, and I've seen plenty of knockouts and plenty of damage on the ground with elbows. I'm not saying they're a bad technique. I'm just saying if you're going to ban something that causes just tears in the skin more often, I'd be okay with it.
Superficial, not traumatic. Superficial to the face is the damage you're seeing.
Right.
It looks bad, but I don't think it actually is I don't think it's causing someone to get stunned more than often.
Plus, you're causing buildup of scar tissue, which damages your stock of fighters for the future. You're also causing problems with their vision in that fight, so they're losing because they're cut up, not because they're a bad fighter. I'm not against elbows. I'm really not. But if you were going to start banning certain techniques, I'm not going to ban a knee to the ground because it's hard. What are you talking about? It's hard. You can hit someone hard. You can do that when they're standing. That's a stupid thing. But saying, I don't want to do elbows because they cause a lot of cuts. That's like saying, why don't you allow headbutts? Which we had in Bellator over the weekend that got stopped. A fight got stopped because of that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but headbutts.
I would just say, if we're going to do no knees to a ground opponent, I just think the term ground opponent needs to get changed.
Right.
I think you should absolutely be allowed to. If someone is on all fours or like 3 points of contact on the ground, it absolutely need the shit out of them. That should be completely like, why are they in that position? Stop that. Like,
yeah, that's not a safe spot.
If someone is shooting in for you on a takedown and they have their hand on the ground while they're doing it, that's bullshit.
Yeah, they're just playing a game, and I don't like it.
Should absolutely be able to meet someone shooting in for a takedown with a hand on the ground with a knee to the face. Like, that's.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, to close on this, like, as far as how I feel about how this was handled, the guy. Yeah. So here's the thing: is he broke the rules? I've always said intent is irrelevant because a rule is a rule, right? Did you intend to grab the cage? It doesn't matter. You grabbed it. I don't give a shit. Like, intent is only important afterwards, because then I can say, hey, like, that was clearly not on purpose. Therefore, that's when you can start to do stuff after the fight, right? You can go back and investigate. Be like, hey, should this be a DQ or should this be no contest? So in this case, I'm not upset with how it was handled. I think your point, it makes more sense than anything I could say. I think, the failing here wasn't in necessarily a warning or the decision afterwards. I think it's in the actual rule itself, where a guy had one hand down. He didn't have to have two, because in Vegas you only have to have one hand, but when you're in New York or Tennessee, you have to have two hands down. And sometimes if you're on your ear, that counts as a grounded up. Like, it's stupid. Like, I understand that the fighters know the rules and they're told the rules beforehand. They're given their first warning pre-fight. I'm not excusing people's poor judgment or bad management of their tools. I'm not. I'm just saying that the fact that we can't get it straight between state to fucking state is a problem, and there's no unified mixed martial arts rule set, because it's not unified. So calling it that is dumb.
Yeah.
And he got I wrote a note. The theme of this night was just keep cheating, because it just increases your odds of winning, apparently.
I mean, I would argue that's been the theme of the UFC for the past 2 years.
Yep.
I mean, realistically more, but I would say in the past 2 years, people being able to game the system has decisively gone in favor of the people gaming it versus the people not.
Yeah, just cheat.
Yeah. Like 90% of the time, you're going to get away with cheating.
Just cheat. I don't mean this in a way where I think, hey, like, this is okay. I have a lot of things going on in my head, because initially I was like, for those of you guys who don't watch MMA, but then I just thought, I'm like, who the fuck is watching this if they don't watch MMA? Anyway.
They just have this. That's what it is.
They see a guy with a beard and they're like, yeah, I'll listen to him spout about stuff that I hate for an hour. No. Anyway, from my perspective, I am not a fan of cheating. I have many videos. I can't even post a link, because I do one of these. Like I said, I have hundreds of these, or over 100 of these at this point, but more than a dozen of them, I went on diatribes of fighters need to be held accountable. And the only way to do that is to punish them accordingly, because if you don't punish them accordingly, they're not going to change their habits. And I don't want to take money away from these people. I don't, because I don't think they get paid enough, and I don't want to affect their careers. So I think we just rip the Band-Aid off right now. Every time someone grabs a cage, you get a fucking point deduction. Oh, but then we're going to have some 6-5 rounds. I don't care.
Yeah. And that's okay. And I'm going to make the argument from the NFL standpoint. There's plenty of NFL games where there are a accumulation of fouls on both sides, and that can end up impacting the game. And
Heavily.
ultimately, discipline of the team is one of the most important factors at the end of the season of whether or not they were a successful team.
Yep.
Teams that average more large loss by fouls rarely make the playoffs compared to teams that have minimal. Discipline is a huge factor of NFL games, regardless of who's the quarterback, who's what wide receiving core, how good their defense was. That penalties stack up and matter. That should be the same in the UFC. Fighters' discipline should be something that's rewarded.
Do you know? Here's something interesting. I'll save my piece on this, and I think I don't want to talk about this anymore because I'm just going to get heated. But the way you just brought up a good point, discipline, right? Having discipline like that to control your tools in our example, right? As far as mixed martial arts goes, mixed martial arts, as far as a professional sport goes, especially let's just go with combat sports because it's most relatable, direct to each other. It has by far the most variables of any martial art, right? Because it encompasses all of them. Yes, there's certain strikes that aren't allowed that might be allowed in other martial arts, but the overwhelming amount of techniques that are allowed inside the cage or ring in mixed martial arts is astounding. The possibilities are almost endless. So what does that mean? That means the variables are crazy high. So if some of those variables that we can nail down to 100% and say, hey, this is one of the videos that we're going to do in the future about the best technique for winning championships, and it's one of my arguments why it's the best one, is controlling variables. That's a variable, as far as committing fouls, that's a variable you have almost 100% control over, especially easy ones, grabbing the cage, eye pokes, fingers in the, grabbing gloves, grabbing shorts, headbutts are a little bit iffy, knees to a grounded opponent, what's the other one? Downward elbow, I know it's a stupid rule, whatever. Punches to the back of the head, which did happen on this fucking card too, and then punches to the spine, right? All of these things you are in 100% control of, so those are variables that you can eliminate yourself. So the people who are able to eliminate those variables will not be punished. It's just like people who can eliminate the variable of getting punched, like taking jabs to the face, right? There's certain people who are just really good with their head movement, right? They control that variable. I control how many times I get hit with a jab because I have really good head movement. And that, for that person, is extremely successful. And going forward, by punishing those people who don't have good discipline and can't control those variables, I think it's just a part of mixed martial arts. If you can't control variables in the cage, you're going to lose more often than you don't.
And part of why, I'm going to say a big part of why this is significant is not only the effect they have on the fight, the fact that it's not what people are training for. So you're not training wrestling against people who are grabbing onto the cage. Like, that's not a factor in how you're trying to take people down. You're not generally training against people who are trying to poke you in the eye. Like,
right.
Just to the point that you brought up. Like, yeah, you train to defeat what is legal in the sport, not what is illegal.
Right. And if you know something's illegal, legal,
that's on takedown. Like, that's
okay. All right. I'm good. Are you good? Do you want to keep talking about this? I don't want to, it's just going to put me in a sour mood.
So I think we're both in pretty solid agreement all around.
Yeah. So, to bookend that, Bohalio gets the win. Oh, man.